It's time to get all your Star Wars news in a single file. From Fantatrax TV, this is Good Morning Tatooine!
If you like Star Wars and you like Lucasfilm, this is the show for you because this is the busiest week ever for Star Wars news. I'm Brian, that's Paul. We don't have time to mess around this week, so let's get on with the show. First up, we've got the Andor Season 2 trailer.
Then, of course, we've got Tony Gilroy, who's been talking about Season 2. Real people making epic decisions.
Yeah, Revenge of the Sith is coming back to cinemas on the 25th of April.
Hooray! Kathleen Kennedy to step down as president of Lucasfilm at the end of 2025. We'll see.
But no, she's not giving an interview to Deadline. And they've begun the process of transitioning the presidency role. But she's staying on and she's moving forward as producer on a number of movie projects. We'll be talking all about them.
We're all hoping for Howard the Duck too. Hasbro Pulse Fanstream has revealed some new products. They look pretty good to me.
Dark Horse have released their May solicitations. We'll be checking them out.
You and your comics. And then Robot Chicken. 20th anniversary of Robot Chicken. Can you believe that? That's amazing. Looking forward to that.
And last but not least, we'll be carrying on with our series, The Death Star Cometh, as we recap Andor Season 1, Episodes 5 and 6. So lots and lots to discuss. So let's not mess around, Paul. Let's crack on with it. And first up, we got the trailer. We've been discussing when we're going to get it for feels like forever, and finally it's here. So to play it and see what it's like.
We're in a war. You want to fight? Or you want to win? Last night I had a dream that the world had turned around. All our hopes have come to be. The revolution starts now.
What a swell party this is.
Remember this moment. You're here, you're right here, and you're ready to fight.
Well, Paul, what do you think?
Amazing. It's weird, isn't it? We were talking about it last Sunday going, come on, surely there'll be a trailer. And we got one. I love the music that they put over the back of that as well.
Yeah.
Really,
It gave
really
it
cool.
a really nice vibe.
It
And
did.
it seems a more punchier show than the first series. They're really
Yeah,
getting stuck
yeah.
in.
I would imagine we've seen elements from each of the different years that it's going to cover throughout Andor Season 2. But yeah, it does seem as if it's faster paced. But I've been thinking about this. I think the thing about Andor, even if people out there aren't Star Wars fans per se, they'll get something out of Andor because it's just such a good quality show.
And I
It
think that's
stands-
kind of what they were leaning on a little bit with the trailer. They were kind of emphasizing how critically acclaimed this was, and this should be the show you should be watching.
Yeah. I mean, it really does stand on its own 2 feet. Season 1, I've been rewatching, and it is brilliant. But yeah, like you picked up on, I think that this is going to be a bit more of a thrill ride than that was. Really looking forward to it. Yeah, looks
I
good.
will pick up on a common theme that we covered on last week on the Death Star Cometh. Abusing farmers' property by tearing a speeder bike across the field last week in episode 4 at Andor, and this week they're firing rockets. Like, just...
I know those crops are going to get completely ruined by that trip transport.
And they've got inheritance tax to pay as well now. You know, they can't afford to have messed up crops.
You're too attached to this farming lot.
I know. Yeah, there was a nice vibe to it. I'm excited to see what's coming. The one disappointment, I guess, for me is they're going to be releasing the episodes in 3-episode blocks, which I get from a story point of view. I think, as a fan, when they release at 8 o'clock in the morning, I've only got time to watch one episode before I go to work. How can you do that to my Lucasfilm? Like, but yeah, I'm not into the binge watching of Star Wars. I like a nice paced out one episode a week, and part of the best part of Andor was it left you wanting more every week, and we're maybe not really going to get that so much this time.
Do you think it hints at the fact that they may be shortish episodes, maybe 25 minutes each?
No, I think
No?
it leans more to the fact that Tony Gilroy got a massive say in everything, to the point that he probably demanded that they release it as chapters because that's the way
Right.
that he wrote it, or
Yeah.
that's the way that he organised the writers of the show as showrunner to
So
make
we're
it.
basically going to get a year each week, aren't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's just too much Star Wars in 1 week. How are we going to do 3 episodes a week, Paul, as a review?
Now that's a very good point. That is a very good point.
It makes it less of a communal viewing experience as well, because when you cram that many episodes together, not everyone's going to watch it in one sitting. So when can you talk to your mates about it? When does the social media self-imposed embargo get lifted?
So it starts on April the 22nd.
Yep.
So
and it's going to be finished within 4 weeks.
Yeah. So when's Japan? When's celebration?
18th to the 20th.
So you're going to get a preview of that.
Well, we're going to have to see the first 3 episodes because you can't show us 1 or 2 now, can you?
Perhaps you'll get a ticket to go back every day. And then by the time it finishes, we will have done Star Wars Fan Fun Day over at I always say Burnley. It's not Burnley now, is it?
Blackburn.
Yeah. It's Burnley for years. So those of us. Did you say you can't make Star Wars?
I can't make Star Wars Fan Fun Day this year, unfortunately. One of my favourite shows in the UK, but I just can't make it.
You're doing Japan, mate. I mean, which one? Blackburn, Japan.
So it was a hard call.
Yeah, I flipped the coin the wrong way. But that's going to be an exciting 4 weeks. I just think it's going to be a brilliant series. Yeah, can't wait.
Yep. Tony Gilroy, of course, has spoken about the series. That was the poster that came out, by the way, which ties back a little bit to his character poster for Rogue One as well. Yeah, Tony Gilroy spoke out as well as part of the release of the trailer, talking about the characters and their relationships and how everything's going to intensify as Cassian becomes part of the Rebel Alliance. Stakes are all going to be raised, and all our heroes and villains, heroes like Orson Krennic there, and villains like Mon Mothma, terrorists like Mon Mothma, will all have choices to make. See, this is the language. This is where Luke's always imperial overlords, elected imperial officials, that should say. Passionate revolutionaries, that should be terrorists. The language is just terrible, Paul. They've all got epic decisions to make. All their decisions are going to have consequences. The fact you're going to jump forward a year at a time, I hope the ripples of their consequences are panned out over those years. We don't necessarily have to see everything that happened, but we're going to see a decision and then maybe jump forward a year and see the result of that decision.
Yeah, I think there's a likelihood that we could see some very familiar characters, particularly towards those last 3 episodes. I'm hoping we see the characters from Rebels, the Ghost crew. I'm even hoping that some way we might even see the Falcon landing at Yavin Base, even if we only see Handley, Chewie, 3PO, and R2 from the back as they go into the temple. That'd be amazing. That would be so cool.
Yeah, something like that would be nice. I think. Just it doesn't need to be central to the story, but just a nice little moment.
Little full stop right at the end.
Yeah.
I'm calling it. I'm calling it, right? So it's going to happen.
You call it. Meanwhile, a far better film because it focuses on the good characters in the franchise. The birth of the legendary Mr. Darth Vader and his good friend and elected Chancellor Palpatine.
Yes.
Rightfully getting power and solidifying it. It's going to be returning to cinemas on April 25th to celebrate its 20th anniversary. And you can also go to the cinema for a 4DX experience and get mist sprayed in your face and your seat wobbled about. If that's what you're like. Really, if you want the 4DX experience when Anakin falls into the lava, your seat should go on fire. But they probably won't go that far, Paul.
No, I don't think they'll go quite that far. I'm really looking forward to this. This is my son's favourite Star Wars film, so it'd be nice to go and share that with him. When Return of the Jedi, the 40th anniversary of Jedi came out the other year, and it had a poster very, very similarly themed to this, albeit with Luke in the foreground, obviously. We went to see that, and that was nice being able to share that with him. But going to see Revenge of the Sith will be great. I wonder if they'll have tweaked it in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. There's been no word of that. Who would do the tweaking? Would be the question. Maybe this next lady, Kathleen Kennedy, because obviously when you kick off the week and you've got some nice Star Wars news in the form of a trailer and a movie release coming back to cinema, someone's got to throw out a negative story because, get the news out there and get the clicks whilst Star Wars is in the psyche of people. So Puck News came out with a story that Kathleen Kennedy was going to be resigning before the end of the year as Lucasfilm boss. And that kind of dominated the headlines across science fiction and film journalism. Variety, THR all reported on it, but all clearly stating that their sources weren't confirming it. And the news kind of stuck around for a couple of days, Paul, and then it was turned out, no, she's not resigning. And Kathleen decided to do an interview or a sit down with Deadline and give her side of the story. And she kind of explained what all the frenzy was. And she just wanted to make it clear she's not retiring. She has had conversations with big Bobby Dazzler at the top of Disney, Bob Iger, and about what the future of Lucasfilm is going to look like, and succession planning, which is pretty much commonplace in all big businesses and corporations. You've actually legally have to have some kind of succession plan in place when you're a big PLC. So these conversations have to be had. So nothing unusual there. and she made it very clear that yes, she does intend to step down as president, but she's producer on the Mandalorian and Grogu movie. She's producer on the upcoming Sean Levy movie, which she confirmed is going to be the next movie after the Mandalorian. And so she's going to be staying on at Lucasfilm. She's not going away. She's still going to be very much heavily involved in the filmmaking process. And the process is underway as to what happens next to the president's role and who takes it. And these conversations have actually been taking place for a number of years. Your thoughts?
Okay, so I mean, if they're saying that the Sean Levy film is coming in after the Mandalorian movie, what sort of timescale do you think there'll be between the two?
I'm saying it'll be Christmas 27.
Okay, so about 18 months between.
That's my guess. If you're going Mandalorian May 2016, there was originally a plan for a Christmas 2016 film.
2026.
Yes, that would make more sense. I just revealed that I'm a time traveler. Yeah, I don't think it's going to get made for 2026, December 26, because if you think about it, The Mandalorian's already filmed and in the can. And they're only just beginning the process of pre-production on the Sean Levy movie.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something going on, but I think you're probably right. I think it's probably more a succession plan rather than she's off.
Yeah.
I think they're just starting to put in place who's going to replace her.
Yes, and she's very clear on that point, I think, as well.
Yeah.
She's asked directly if that means the next person is going to be Dave Filoni, and she basically says, no, there's internal discussions, but she's not going to go into who it's going to be. And asked if it's been chaotic, and she says, not at all, that this is just what business is and what life is like. She's not going to be there forever. She's been there 13 years ago since George asked her to step in, which is feels kind of weird when you say 13 years. It doesn't feel like that. And she's got a lot of people within the business and on the creative side as well that she thinks more than capable to step up. And she also makes the point, which I think a lot of people forget. When she came back into Lucasfilm wasn't making movies. Lucasfilm wasn't making TV. She's actually had to build up that company to make it a movie and TV producing corporation. It didn't have that.
It was literally a license. That's all it was.
Yes, yeah. So the company's much bigger than when she took on the role. And streaming didn't exist, or was very early days. So everything's kind of changed. So it would not surprise me if we see more than one person take up very senior roles within the company.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. Maybe joint stewardship over it.
Yeah. I think you've already seen, when they've seen put Dave Filoni into chief creative officer role, that part of that development of what the top of Lucasfilm looks like has perhaps already begun. I don't ever see him being president of the company, because I don't think you put a creative person like Dave Filoni sat in meetings talking budgets and fire safety policies and HR and insurance renewals. I don't think that's Dave Filoni's where you want him to be. Although I'm not saying he's not good at getting a good quote for your insurance, She's asked directly as to how long she thinks she'll be around as president, and she says they might make an announcement in a few months, could be a year, but she's going to be sticking around regardless to help that person be successful. And she again reiterates she's already producing the Mandalorian movie, which comes out May 2016, and she's also producing the Sean Levy one, which, as I predict, is probably going to be Christmas 2027.
So we're looking at 2 years, really, at least, aren't we?
At least, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's no change overnight. So there is no story, really. I would suggest behind all this, it's naturally what happens in business. Asked if she's getting pushed aside. No. Her call. Asked about the scrutiny. And then she talks about how frustrating it is that the development gets scrutinized so much, more than any other production company. It's very hard for anything to happen without Star Wars, without part of it becoming public. And so, based on that, let's talk about what's coming next, Paul. Let's scrutinize the development. So the journalist from Deadline broke the story about Simon Kinberg coming in and doing a trilogy. In this interview, Kathleen Kennedy confirms that is happening. She mentions that they're going to see a script sometime around June. That Simon had worked with Lucasfilm previously on Rebels. He's been busy doing X-Men, blah, blah, blah. So she's excited about him coming on board. And that his trilogy is going to be the core saga moving forward. So although there's going to be spin-offs and individual films, the trilogies are going to continue, and that's going to be the focus of the main Star Wars saga.
Do you take it from that's 10, 11, and 12?
I think so, yeah. I think you continue that. I don't see why you wouldn't.
Yeah.
Then they ask about Sean Levy, and she mentions that he's written a story. It's going to be about 5 or 6 years post the Rise of Skywalker. The Mandalorian itself is they kind of view it as a separate kind of storyline. It's kind of its own thing. And the Sean Levy movie could bring back characters from the sequel saga, but it's pretty much going to be new characters. And of course, if we remember, Ryan Gosling was rumoured heavily to be attached, and I think it's pretty much all but confirmed. I kind of half expect him to make an appearance in Japan, potentially. She's asked about how many projects are on the go. She says 3 or 4. So if we bring them up, you've got Mandalorian Grogu, you've got Dave Filoni's movie. After that, you've got Sean Levy as well. Well, Sean Levy after The Mandalorian, then Dave Filoni's movie. Jim Mangold as well. And Taika Waititi, which I hate trying to pronounce. So yeah, 3 or 4 feels about right as to where we're going. Asked about James Mangold. She just mentions that he's been really busy with his Oscar-nominated movie, A Complete Unknown, in all the award season, so his has kind of been delayed a bit, and that's probably why Sean Levy's in his slot. And she's more than happy to accommodate the top talent to get the top talent on Star Wars. Have they forgotten anybody else? And that's when they mention Taika. No mention of Patty Jenkins. No mention of the Lando movie. No mention of the Rian Johnson trilogy. So we can probably count them as all being dead projects, I would think. And asked how long if she's going to be around for another 8 or 9 years while they're making these movies. She doesn't know. I'm going to say that, but yeah, it's possible. She wants to continue making movies until she's dead, basically. Well, literally, her words, not mine.
She must be in her early 70s.
She's, I think, 72.
Yeah. So, I would imagine a couple of years.
Yeah. She was asked if she had any regrets. She's got none. She's loved working with Disney. Disney have been incredibly supportive of Star Wars as an IP. And that they've expanded things in a way I don't think George could even have imagined. It's been such a learning experience. It's her first time being an executive. She considers herself a filmmaker, and she's tried to run the job as executive, being the producer, being the filmmaker. She's loved working with the creative people, finding people like Tony Gilroy, who's done transformative, exceptional work. The creative experience of Andor has been fantastic, and the second season's coming out. And that's where she gets her satisfaction from, and she hopes that continues. Asked whether Tony Gilroy could be marked to do a movie. Doesn't think he'd do that because he's already given 10 years to Star Wars and he's got lots of his own projects on the go. So much news in there, Paul.
That is a lot of info. You did well there.
Yeah.
Not only to create the information slides, but to narrate it. Beautifully done, sir. Well done.
And I think we'll see a lot of these threads develop over the next few weeks, and especially at Star Wars Celebration. And
yes.
this was effectively your showcase panel and a deadline interview.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Star Wars on the bubble. Kathleen's going to be here for a number of years, as expected. As I said on social media, if you follow me on social media, she's not resigning, because if she was, there would have been a stock market announcement. They're probably only having discussions, and that's what's turned out to be the case.
Yeah. So, couple of questions. Are you expecting, therefore, to see perhaps a trailer of the Mandalorian and Grogu film over in Japan?
Not sure if we'll see a trailer.
Sizzle reel or something?
I think we'll see a sizzle reel behind the scenes of people prodding Grogu. And on set and various things, people carrying it as if it's real. Someone kicking it across the back lot.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
There's obviously a lot of talk in that text there about movies.
Yeah.
Do you think that there's going to be a conscious move away from the TV, the streaming side of things?
That's an interesting question. I don't necessarily think so. I think there's going to be a cut back on the amount of TV. I think they overdid it. I think Marvel also overdid it.
Yeah.
If you got one series a year and an animation series a year, I think I'd be happy at that.
Yeah.
And maybe Disney Plus wouldn't be happy at that. The Disney are going to want to make money on every platform they've got. The most money they can make is on a movie. And it's been far too long since Star Wars has been in the cinema. And so they want to get back to a point where they can be releasing Star Wars movies every year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And making money, successful Star Wars movies every year. And when they achieve that, they can also be making successful Star Wars TV shows. And it's finding the right balance of what's appropriate for a movie and what's appropriate for a TV show. And so I actually think something like Andor, you would never make as a Star Wars movie. But it makes perfect sense to do something such a deep dive on a TV show. To
be able to do all the nuances that Andor's got, you couldn't do it as a film. No. So it does make sense. But they did throw a hell of a lot of money at it. And whilst it's been critically acclaimed, whether it's actually made anywhere close to the money back, I don't know.
You've seen a massive decline, about 20% in viewership on streaming services.
Yeah.
The budget of streaming services is also coming down when all these streaming services now need to cut a profit. You're probably going to see more mergers within the streaming market.
Yeah.
Outliers like HBO Max, Tubi, and those kind of streaming services are probably going to get incorporated into others. I don't think Paramount could probably handle being out on its own either. I think you're going to end up with Disney, Amazon, Netflix as your three big platforms.
Yeah. I think you're spot on there. It's going to be a massive amalgamation. Whether that'll end up going to the Monopolies and Mergers Commission over in the UK, I don't know.
But yeah, it's a really interesting question. I think we're going to see a focus for a time period on film. I expect at Japan quite a few, maybe 2 or more animated series getting announced.
Yes.
One being a manga animated series.
Yeah.
So I think that will maybe take a bit of focus on Disney Plus. It's interesting. I don't know if we're going to get a Mandalorian season 4. I don't think we will. I don't think we're seeing an Ahsoka season 3. We're not going to see an Andor season 3. We're not getting an Acolyte season 2. We're not getting more Book of Boba Fett. So everything's kind of reached its conclusion a little bit on TV.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've got Ahsoka still to come filming from May, so probably release 2026. So after Andor's out, and it's going to be out over 4 weeks, there's a massive, probably 18-month, at least 12 months, if not 18-month lull on Star Wars live action TV.
I would love to see, as an animated series, something based on the original characters. I've said it before. I think there's a real hunger for that, and I think that would do well on streaming services. And the products that you can be able to sell off the back of that, that's where they make the money.
Yeah. Hasbro this week, Paul,
This is
had a
where you
big
make the
announcement.
money.
Probably regretting it doing it this week, but they had a big announcement, and it was. I'm not a figure collector, but to me, it was quite a impressive array of announcements on it. It was quite some interesting figures.
There was some nice deep delves. I mean, that's a beautiful figure, isn't it?
Yeah, so starting off at the vintage collection with an Imperial Armored Commando, $25, pre-order from March 5th, available from the summer.
Yeah, no, that's really nice.
In the Black Series helmet collection, you can now get a Clone Trooper 501st Legion one, $99.99.
Yeah, they've had other versions of that out previously, so it's just a bit of a blue stripe, but it looks lovely. Yeah.
Still annoys me they don't include the batteries. Just the little things, Paul.
It is the little things.
Hammerhead in the vintage collection. I refuse to give them their names.
This is all helping to populate the cantina that a lot of people have ordered. So
of course, yeah. I didn't think of that. It's a good point. Also out in the summer at $25. Moff Gideon is a Dark Trooper armor set, which I've given the image of him in the armor because I love the look of the armor. I don't think it showed on the TV series long enough to appreciate it, but I just think it's an awesome looking character. It
was almost too shiny on TV, wasn't it? You couldn't really get to see the detail of it.
Yeah, so that is in the Black Series. Also in the Black Series, I can never say this word, Paul. Imperial.
Try to do it.
An Imperial
Praetorian?
Last Jedi Guard.
Last Jedi Emperor's Royal Guard.
Coming out in the Black Series as well. Walrus Man in the vintage collection.
Yeah,
he doesn't have. Does he have a removable arm?
He does.
He does. So you can show what happens when you encounter those vicious Jedi.
He looks. I think it's exactly the same figure that I had as a Black Series did have a range of 3 3/4, and I had that figure. It doesn't look any different to the one that I had. So I think that's just a remold.
The Black Series Count Dooku.
Yeah, that's very nice.
It's a very nice pose, very nice facial expression to it as well.
Yeah.
If you like the horrible Jedi, you can get a Kit Fisto.
Still many people's favourite.
Yeah. Even worse, you can get a droid. You can get an R2-D2.
The little kick bin. Brilliant.
Yeah. And appropriate enough just in time for Andor Season 2, although it doesn't come out till the summer. You can spend your money from March 5th. Cassian Andor in his TIE Fighter pilot outfit.
Yeah. Sienna test pilot. So that's obviously a planet, perhaps? I don't know.
Is that not from that's from season 1, is it not?
Sienna?
Yeah.
I don't recall that one, but you might be right.
I don't know. Anyway, we'll find out. We're almost at we're halfway through our recap shortly. We'll see if he turns up. And director Orson Krennic who wonderfully steered the construction of the Emperor's mobile peacemobile.
But nobody wears that cape like you do.
Yeah. He helped bring the Emperor's vision of restoring peace and justice to the galaxy by bringing their mobile home around all the different planets.
Mobile home.
In a bargain at $24.99. The cape is removable as well.
Oh,
There you go.
I think it just lifts off, doesn't it? Yeah.
It does. If you had to pick one of those, Paul, you can only get one.
Probably Hit Fisto.
Jedi.
Great, brilliant
Jedi. We'll flip back. There we go. One too many. Kit Fisto. It does. It's actually a very nice, unique looking sculpt.
That is very cool. Yeah.
More to my taste than some comics. Dark
Yay.
Horse have announced what they're bringing out in May. Free comic book days. You don't have to pay for this one. You can get Young Jedi Adventures comic. Just go into your local comic book store on Free Comic Book Day and at the beginning of May, and you'll be able to pick up that comic for free. Probably other stuff for free. But be sure to support your local comic book store by actually paying for something other than Pokemon cards. Don't waste your money on Pokemon cards.
Get something else while you're there, definitely.
Yeah. And the High Republic Phase 3 rapidly heads towards its conclusion. We're at issue 18 from Daniel Jose Older. And lastly, Hyperspace Stories continues with the Bad Batch Ghost Agents issue 4. And Ventress on the cover there as well.
Nice cover. Yeah, I like that. Very cool.
She's going to be attacking Clone Force 99. And that's the comic book news. Bringing us to the last news story of the week, Paul.
Ah, yes.
The 20th anniversary special of Robot Chicken. Obviously, Robot Chicken did a few Star Wars specials. I don't believe the 20th anniversary special is particularly Star Wars centric, but it's bound to pop up somewhere within it.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure it will do.
Were you a fan of Robot Chicken first time round?
I must admit, I've seen some of the episodes that are non-Star Wars, but it was really the Star Wars ones that I really enjoyed. Who else would have dreamed of IG-88 playing basketball? I mean, it was great. They did some real fun stuff. Even Walrus Man at the cantina, I think his name was Scott. The Emperor on the escalator. Trooper.
I just point out that I'm sporting my cantina shirt.
Very nice. Very nice.
From Roosevelt's, if you're interested in picking up a shirt.
I do need to get some more Roosevelt stuff, definitely.
That is this week's news, Paul, which, even though there's lots of it, we've rattled through it as quick as we can. So much to cover. Head to fantatracks.com to read it in depth. Read the Deadline article. You'll get the link in the show notes. Kathleen Kennedy had a lot to say, and we'll be dissecting it, I guess, over the next few weeks as well, because these news stories will rumble on, I'm sure. Meanwhile, Paul, do you want to talk some Andor season 1?
I would very much like to go on a journey with, how do you call this section?
The Death Star Cometh.
It's beautiful. Let's do it.
So, the Death Star cometh once more. One day it will catch up with Cassian Andor, and it'll make him go pop. And we can count down the days to that. Season 2 rapidly approaches. We've got the trailer this week, and we continue to whirl our way through season 1 and recap and review everything that happened in the first series. So we're fully prepped for the debut of season 2, Paul.
Definitely, yeah. And this sort of culminates the 3-episode sort of storyline between 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, so it kind of completes the storyline on Aldhani, which I like to call the stealing of the hardworking and Imperial workers' wages. And we can get stuck straight into it. Oh, there we go. We need to move it on. There we go. We're talking Andor now, not Robot Chicken. But talking of someone that maybe is a bit of a chicken.
Poor Cyril.
He's back home with his mum. He's in his childhood bedroom on Coruscant. And he's just looking out the window.
Yeah,
It reminded me of Joey from Friends, you know, when Joey just stood and it was raining. It was sad. He's not a happy chap.
No.
It's easy to forget that he wasn't an Imperial. He was Corsac, so he's unemployed. He's got nothing to do. He's stuck back home with his mum, who gave him a slap when he returned. And all he's got to do is sit in the kitchen and eat chocolate salty balls. And he kind of gets a pep talk from his mum, which is never good, is it, really?
No. She's great. She's brilliant in this. But yes, he's very much a mummy's boy, isn't he?
Yes. And she's basically trying to G him up and get him seeking work, employment, basically, get his life back on track. Someone who's got a job is Cassian Andor, known currently as Clem, who's undercover with the rebellion on a job, but he's not necessarily particularly welcome. They're all kind of suspicious of him.
Very much. Yeah.
Not particularly liking him very much at all.
No.
And they're all kind of keeping a watch on him and what he's up to. Not settling in very well. They're a very suspicious group of rebels, Paul.
They are, yeah. I mean, this is real stripped back to basics rebels as well, isn't it? I mean, they're living like something something out of Lord of the Rings.
No, that's my homeland. That's how we live up here in the Highlands.
Sorry. All right, so they're living on this modern development in Scotland.
We'll go and see where. We'll go and visit where the kind of place that Paul's used to live in. We'll head to Coruscant, you know, where they've got people serving them food on his table in the morning, you know. Mon Mothma there with her daughter and her husband.
He's a dodgy character, isn't he?
I don't think so. I think he's a devoted, loving husband.
So for everybody else,
basically, he's an upstanding member of the community, Paul.
He's a sleep.
And what he doesn't know is his wife's an undercover terrorist. If only he knew, he'd be filing divorce papers.
I suspect he's going to meet his maker at some point, but yeah.
I think at some point he's going to find out. We've obviously seen the trailer for season 2, and we've seen what appears to be a wedding of sorts that Mon Mothma is at. Do we think her daughter is getting married?
I think so. I think that was pretty much an arranged marriage that was going on in
because it mentioned it briefly. Well, in an upcoming episode we'll talk about next week, I think. That her daughter was potentially going to get married off to a terrorist from Mon Mothma's home planet, and an actual terrorist this time, a criminal, money laundering terrorist from her home planet, Paul. But I wondered, what if there's a twist and she marries someone else, and the arranged marriage is Orson Krennic's son?
Oh,
I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I like that. Also, have you spotted that her husband's hairstyle here looks very much like Andor's at the end of the season 2 trailer?
That's very true.
Yeah. So maybe he's been indoctrinated and is doing a bit of undercover work with those very good people from the Empire.
Do you think he's invited to the wedding?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I don't know whether he's been invited through the strictly the right channels. I think he's probably got an invite there through.
I think he's invited himself.
No, I think Luthen's got him there.
But yeah, that's kind of Paul's natural home.
That's very, very much. I mean, you can see.
Not a very nice daughter.
No, bit of teenage angst.
Yeah, didn't really take to her very much. So yeah, be interesting to see who she does marry.
They're very much a dysfunctional family, aren't they?
Yeah. Back in Aldani, Clem and his friends are talking through how they're going to rob the hardworking people of their hard-earned wages.
With a Polaroid camera.
What's that?
With a Polaroid, it looked like a Polaroid camera.
It was pretty much a Polaroid camera. So he's kind of getting a little bit of a pep talk as to what it means to be a rebel and why they want to be rebels. And some of it hits home a little bit, I think, Paul, but maybe at this point, not too deeply. He's still very much there for the money.
I don't think he really knows why he's there at all. He's sort of like been poached by Luther Rail and dropped into this situation. I think he's still quite confused. But yeah, the fact that none of them, maybe that one young lad that was in a couple of stills back, maybe he was the only one that seemed to trust him, but everybody else very suspicious of him being there.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the rebel who's undercover as an Imperial, they're getting prepared for the ceremony of the eye, where the local Highlanders, as they're known in the programme, and it was filmed in the Highlands of Scotland, are coming to celebrate this occasion. And we get a lot of insulting comments about the locals being drunks, which I can remember taking great umbrage at the time too, and I've mellowed a little bit on it now, but this stereotypical drunk Scotsman kind of thing. And I also didn't like the fact that they talked about the clearances a little bit, which is very raw to me, because just over these hills where this was filmed is my clan land that was taken from my clan.
Oh, right, okay.
My clan home is not too far away from where this is filmed. So I took umbrage at the time to that as well, because I thought this is a writer trying to be clever, thinking, let's tie it into we're going to film in the Highlands, let's tie it into the Highlands, and we'll call them Highlanders, and we'll call them drunks, and we'll talk about the clearances. And yeah, I didn't like it at the time. I've mellowed on it a little bit, I think, now, but I bring it up because it's still not sure.
The home of the Cameron clan.
Yeah, just over the hill, just over that hill's there. And you see the sort of location where they're going to be celebrating the ceremony of the eye. Meanwhile, on Ferrex, the Imperials have taken over. There's no Corsic security anymore. It is now Imperial world. And they're getting the locals to do the cleanup and watching them very closely. Things are changing in the galaxy. The Empire is having to show more control. And on Aldani, they're rehearsing for their roles as Imperials, which is incredibly dangerous, because if you look at Andor and his compatriot at the back there, they're marching with the guns facing towards each other. Really shouldn't be doing that.
I'd swap sides, lads.
Yeah. The ladies of the team don't look too impressed.
No, they look like two disappointed ladies at a nightclub seeing the lads walking past. Yeah.
Yeah. So as they're masquerading as local sheep farmers, the Imperials do a little bit of a fly past.
Yeah.
And they're heading back towards the base, where our undercover rebel is kind of plotting out what's to come for the day ahead, and things are getting a little bit tense.
Definitely. Are we still in episode 5 at this stage, or is this?
We are, yep.
Yep, still 5.
And over on Coruscant, the Imperials are becoming a little bit more aware as well as to all the problems going on in Ferrex, and they start making a plan as to how they're going to crack down a little bit on the locals, how they're going to catch Cassian Andor. And of course, on Aldhani, the rebels have to cover up their tracks. So that wonderful sculpture that someone had spent months building, Paul. The bird.
For a minute, I thought that was meant to be the actual thing.
Yeah, it wasn't a special effect from the Willow, the TV series.
It looks like awful sort of Thunderbird sort of flames on it. Yeah, on a mug.
And a group of rebels march off into duty, and they begin the trek across ground to implement their plan. Cyril still stuck at home, eating his soggy breakfast, with his mother still nipping his head to the point he's just like, oh, give it a break. And he's my favourite character in the whole thing, Paul. I love him.
Do you think he's got sort of some hidden depths to him?
I don't know, but I do hope by the end of season 2 that he murders his own mother. Is that wrong?
Well, personally, I'd like to murder her, but I don't think he should. Yeah.
I think he should, and I think he should do it with a spoon.
Brown with a bowl
Just
of
crack her over the head with a bowl of Monster Munch cereal, whatever it is.
There you go. Spoilers.
Yeah. Her little group of rebels get some money shots in for the cost of having travelled all the way up to the Highlands of Scotland to do some filming. And we see the transport that Cassian as well is going to be using later, where the money comes in and out on a Aldhani base. And we learn that our secret undercover rebel, he's kind of head of the operations, and he gets to command everyone around. And we get to see the money.
Yeah.
Very similar to what we saw in Skeleton Crew, to be fair, now you look back at it.
Yeah. I suppose it is, isn't it? It's those coins then, put into those racks, yeah.
A rebel crew plotting away. Cassian kind of gives a speech to try and get him to back him a little bit and prove his allegiance. I'm not sure I was buying it at that point, Paul, were you?
No.
No.
Definitely not. No. But at least they do look like a bunch of sheep farmers. That's amazing.
Yeah. Mon Mothma, she's back in Coruscant with her husband, still living the high life. Apparently somewhat unaware of what's going on, to fund her terrorist organisation. And nighttime is here. Cyril stuck home alone in his bedroom with his Black Series action figures. Or it could be Sideshow. Could be Sideshow.
I think it might be Sideshow. Yeah, they look close.
Yeah. And still obsessed with Cassian Andor. Cassian, of course, are ready to get their operation into action. And on Coruscant, Luthien, he's finding out what's going on as well. Everything's starting to get tense as the episode ends. And thankfully, Paul, we get stuck straight in because we're going straight to episode 6, The Eye. So we don't have to wait to find out. And following Cassian's previous speech, where he tried to win over the rebels, he then engages with them a little bit again. And he gets their side of things and why they're rebels. And you start to see him break a little bit. He becomes a little bit convinced that maybe this is a cause that he could sign up for.
Yeah, he's particularly close to that one rebel, isn't he? I'm just trying to find out what his name is, but yeah.
The Highlanders, they begin arriving en masse. The Imperials make drunk jokes about them that irritated me once again. And all of our rebels start getting into position. We've got a group of them are going to be Imperial soldiers, and another group are going to enter by the water on the other side. And we see them here as the Highlanders arrive, and they've dressed up as Imperial uniforms, and they kind of march alongside them, and it kind of integrates them into the local base in quite a clever little way.
Yeah, and snuck them in.
And the rest of them attack by water and climb up and make themselves ready to break into the base. And the boss of the base, he's kind of stuck with our dodgy rebels hiding Imperial troopers. So when they get back into the base, they draw their weapons on him, hold him captive. It all gets a little bit tense. His wife and child get arrested as well as part of the process. All whilst outside the Highlanders are doing the ceremony to celebrate the coming of the eye, which is basically, we find out, is
It's a bit like the Northern Lights mixed with
like the
haze.
Northern Lights. That's a very good way of describing it, which we're out here just a few days ago. It was very stunning. Gets a little bit brutal a little bit in a number of ways.
Yes.
And they bring captive to the whole base. There's shows you what like the rebellion is, holding a mother and child hostage, gagged
And
at
innocent
gunpoint.
innocent mother and child, yeah.
Terrible, isn't it? Terrible. Poor young and little lad. Whilst the rest of the troopers are all downstairs playing cards, and they all get caught basically and held captive, and they start looting the money. Everyone's hard-earned wages stolen. And they start loading it up onto the ship, just as you say, the Northern Lights, effectively. The eye begins to happen outside. The alarm goes out, and the Alkenzi Air Command, which I guess, is this supposed to be
This was beautiful.
same planet, I guess?
Yeah.
Um,
That was really nicely done. Very subtle. They don't ram it down your throat. They just sort of say,
it's a nice
It's
design
all-
as well, I think, just the way they've got the TIE fighters there. So they're called into action to help secure the base. They drop some of the money, typical rebels. But as you can see, they've got a lot of it loaded up on his spacecraft there, and our rebels fight their way out of the situation. Andor takes control of the ship. They kind of blast off through the kind of rocket tunnel, which kind of reminded me a little bit of the Indiana Jones movie, where Indiana Jones kind of strapped himself to a rocket to exit the underground facility in the start of the Crystal Skull a little bit. And of course, as they take off, our young rebel kind of gets knocked over and crushed by part of the loot that they've stolen, basically.
Killed by greed.
And gets badly hurt. He's not dead yet, but he will
Not
be
dead
shortly.
yet, no. Not dead.
And they blast away. And we get this kind of spectacular kind of, which looks terrible in a screenshot, but when you see it live, it looks brilliant on screen.
Yeah, it's very good.
So our Highlanders are celebrating, one, the eye, and two, the fact that the rebels are probably winning a little bit.
Yeah.
And the poor held captive Imperials are forced to watch all this going on.
I can only imagine what their very fine boss, Lord Vader, would have thought of that.
I know. Well, to be fair, this is justice right here. Steal our money, you're going to get crushed. And poor kid, he's needed to help navigate them the way out of the eye, using his little camera device. So they kind of drag him up to the cockpit, and he uses a little device to help steer Andor through it. And they do make it through, despite the Imperials attacking. And of course, some of the rebels still undercover, kind of left behind, and they kind of regroup later. And we get some lovely, beautiful shots.
Yeah, you're right.
And
The stills don't do that justice to them. No.
our rebels escape. Our friend is dying. They take him to another planet where he gets medical treatment from this weird guy.
I've forgotten about that. Yeah, very strange, wasn't it?
But outside, Andor gets into a pretty strong argument. I get money and payment and loyalty and rebellion. And it escalates to the point where Andor thinks he's not going to get paid. And he shoots him. Cold-blooded murder once again. That's what we're calling that now. 3 cold-blooded murders, 2 Corsic officials, and a rebel.
Look, it's what he does.
It's what he does. It's who he is. He's just a despicable human being. And he goes in, and the guy holds up all 4 hands. And he demands his crystal that Luthien had given him earlier, that the rebels have been holding as kind of a lure to keep him working for them. And he gets that back, but she also gives him the kid's book as well, which is kind of his Bible a little bit on why he's a rebel.
Yeah.
And that comes into play, I think, in future episodes a little bit. Andor kind of goes down this path of believing what he reads.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, news has gotten to Coruscant of what's happening. There's panic in the Imperial Intelligence Bureau. The news reaches the Senate. It concerns Mon Mothma a little bit because it's very high profile and very bold. And Luthien Rail, he's kind of happy. He likes a bit of cash.
He loves a bit of anarchy.
He does. And that is kind of the end of the arc. The Aldani arc, we'll call it, Paul. It was a lot of fun, wasn't it?
I loved it. Yeah, there was a heist. I'd forgotten about the 4-armed medic. I'd forgotten about him. But yeah, it was just a nice little setup. Each of these sets of 3 episodes, much like I would imagine will happen in season 2, they operate as their own little storylines. So yeah, that was 4, 5, and 6. Not my favourite. I've got to say, I've got a bit of a sweet spot for me would be the prison episodes, which will be coming up next. But yeah, a great series, brilliantly acted, fantastic scenery, Brian. Yes, we know.
I know, it's just my back garden. But yeah, I've been there. I've been to both locations. So I went to Glen Tilt, which is where the sort of rebels had their sort of camp and base.
Yeah.
Did all that, which was difficult to find. But once you found it, it was like, oh, that's really easy to find. And we also did the electricity station as well, which is basically the Imperial base on Aldani, which is just a simple walk up a hill.
Paul McHugh did some brilliant drone shots from there, didn't he?
He did, yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, really, really good stuff.
Which you'll find on Fantatrack social media.
You will find it.
You will. Some great stuff there. And interesting episodes overall. It really started to ramp up the action. It really started to ramp up the tension and started building up the heat on Cassian, I guess, a little bit.
Yes, yeah. I mean, we're seeing the evolution of his role as a rebel, more than we've seen with any previous rebel. I mean, even Luke Skywalker didn't get this sort of lead in time, did he?
Yeah, that's very true.
Straight from Tatooine. You're right, you're a rebel now. Okay, thanks. But yeah, this is a nice slow burn. Yeah, just quality, real good quality stuff.
Yeah. So we'll be back next week on Good Morning Tatooine to discuss more from Andor Season 1 as we get ramped up for Season 2. And of course, the Death Star Cometh is part of Good Morning Tatooine, your weekly recap of all the latest Star Wars news, live streaming every Sunday at 9 p.m. in the UK and 4 p.m. in New York. And we also release it as a separate video on Phantom Tracks TV after every show. Back, Paul,
We're
to the
back.
warmth of the Good Morning Tatooine studios on the sands of Tatooine.
Back from Aldani.
Yeah. And just enough time to give some shout outs and some promos to what else is going on fantatracks.com, because it's been an incredibly busy week, and I'm sure anyone watching this will want to dig more in depth into the show. So, as well as the links in the show notes, you can go. Wait a sec. That's not what I want to do. Let's go back. Whilst I get my screen ready, Paul. Let's try once again.
That's what you wanted.
That's a lot better. You can go to fantatracks.com, which is all your Star Wars news in a single file, with daily Star Wars and Lucasfilm news covering everything from film, TV, collecting, fashion, gaming, literature, music and art, with interviews, event coverage, podcasts and reviews.
And we've got social media, of course. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, X, which is formerly Twitter, and TikTok, amongst others.
And if you'd rather listen in, you can listen into our podcast on Fantatracks Radio. If you go to your podcatcher of choice, type in Fantatracks Radio, you will find a host of our shows, from literature, collecting, music, interviews, our friends across the other side of the world in Australia, Planet Leia for a female perspective on everything Star Wars. Start Your Engines, Paul, which you're one of the co-hosts on. It's a deep dive into Star Wars ships and machinery.
The latest one that Mark and I have recorded is the Airspeeder / Snowspeeder / Desert Speeder. That ship that's so familiar from The Empire Strikes Back and all its iterations. So I think that one releases very soon. I don't think it's this weekend. I think it's very soon.
And of course, you can stay on Fantatracks TV on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch and X. Good Morning Tatooine every Sunday live at 9 p.m. in the UK. We normally have a Jabba's Corp. We have a big debate every week. We'll bring that back next week, and we'll have a big debate about the future of Lucasfilm, I think. And Fantha Arcade, which will be our regular live streaming gaming, which is definitely coming very soon.
Oh dear.
Paul, it's been a great honour having you back co-hosting the show again this week for
that was a lot of work.
very, very busy show. So thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Your feelings just to cap off the week?
Just a busy week all round for Star Wars news. Like you say, there was enough with a trailer in its own right. That would have been enough for that week. There was enough with the Kathleen Kennedy story. What was the other big story from the week?
Revenge of the Sith.
Revenge of the Sith returning to theatres. I mean, these people really need to sort out their PR departments and spread these things out.
And I think on that note, we'll say it's a good night from me.
And it's a good night from him.
Keep up to date with the latest Star Wars news each and every day on fantatracks.com. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Tumblr, and Pinterest at Fantatracks. And be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and follow Fantatracks TV to be alerted to new content and to be a part of our live shows.